Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to RCI Mondays, and of course, it's time for another One Make Championship with the Maserati Gran Turismo MC GT4. Tonight, we're bringing you round three from South Africa from Kyalami, 4.52 kilometers in length, 16 turns. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton. Alongside me is Ted Edwards, with Stewie behind the cameras, and of course, next door to us, as always, the live steward. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, it's a bit rainy today, John. It's We're going to be very difficult race for these guys, but it's good to be back. I'm back again. Within a week of doing the 6 hour, I'm been dragged in to help out again, which is very nice. Just off the chair. It wasn't much just this time, fortunately, but it's a little bit wet today, but it's still warm.
Yeah, less dust build up than last time at Indianapolis, when, of course, we brought Ted Edwards back into the box briefly for the esports series, flown him all the way over to South Africa for tonight for what is a very wet track indeed, Ted. Air temperatures 21 degrees, track temperature 25 degrees, and Kevin Boss is currently at the head of the queue, yielding to another car there just to let them past. Of course, with GT4s, no tyre blankets tonight. So everybody's going to have to work the Pirellis into some temperature. And of course, a nice warm track to do so. So it shouldn't take too long to bring them into their optimal window. Although, of course, with the update on everybody's lips, 1.9 tyres behaving very differently to how they did do very early stages of braining. Super easy to pick up now since 1.9 has dropped. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting learning curve, I think, tonight for everybody on the grid, Ted.
Yeah, from what I've heard so far, the GT4s are feeling much better than they used to, which is nice to hear because they were quite a handful to drive and probably not as fun as you would hope them to be. But this Maserati is a class of GT4 car, so hopefully for the guys it feels better. But it is raining, so it's gonna it might be off-putting a little bit with all that rain on the track.
Yeah, going to be super tricky to find their kind of line tonight, as we already see Dan Van Zoofen there on board with him. He is now first in the queue after taking Kevin Boss down into turn one, which is essentially this little kink corner here as we head down the hill towards what is essentially turn two of Crowthorne. Typically very wide corner on the entry, although pinches very closely to the apex indeed. Be very careful on lap one, turn two. They're going to essentially be the kind of undoing of your race as all the cars kind of bottleneck into the Jiski sweep. Now into barbecue turn five, already wrestling the wheel. Loads of opposite lock. We're going to see plenty of this tonight, I think, as we ride on board now. Dan Van Zoofen still coming down towards Sunset. Turn six, I've seen a few cars getting already squirrely through here, and Dan fighting the wheel on corner entry and just wrestling the car around through the puddles and all the standing water as he now comes down turn 7 of Clubhouse. Again, always wrestling the wheel on corner entry, corner exit. These drivers are in for a real workout tonight as they now come towards the S's of turn 8 and 9. Going to be crucial to get a good run out of here. Obviously, a very long drag up the hill to turn 10 of Leocop as they wrestle the wheel still, coming under the bridge up the other side. Look for the marshal's post on the left. Normally a good reference for the breaking point of this corner. Can be a very blind crest. You don't always know what you're coming into. And Van Zoofen still wrestling the wheels. He comes out of turn 11 now, down the hill, begins the descent down to mine shaft of turn 12. Yellow flags galore kind of everywhere at the moment. Permanent yellow somewhere on circuit for someone. And now into the crocodiles of turn 13 and what is essentially the kink of 14. Already seen big drifts from Harry Phillips through here. No Dom Healy tonight just yet. I'm hoping he does turn up because he put on a great show at Donington with some of his drifts. And big slide coming through Cheetah, turn 15, before jumping on the brakes for turn 16. As we now round the last corner. Going to be, again, crucial to get a good run, but constantly wrestling the wheel. Wonder if there's going to be slight graining on those cold, wet tyres, but it is a very exciting lap, and Dan Van Zoofen with the first time on the board of a 1:56.885, and that is very interesting indeed to see the driving style or the steering inputs there, Ted. It's looks like quite a handful.
Yeah, I had a trip to the track in the week just to have a little sneak peek and saw one of the cars going around, and it wasn't going around properly. It was going around backwards. So yeah, it's very difficult to drive these cars. You know, there's no TC in these things. Like, you know, getting the power down is very hard, and obviously within the braking zones you've got no ABS, so it's even worse. It's not fun, but these guys look like they're doing all right. You know, getting the times in. It's just you know, first lap out is not great. But talking about Dom Healy, he's decided not to do this race tonight and use one of his sign outs. So that's why we haven't seen the same with Les Stevenson. So few people just avoiding this race a little bit, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I can't really blame him. Just being told on our ear. In fact, Dom Healy's equipment has unfortunately broken, so no action for Dom until he gets that repaired or replaced. But great to see him back next round if possible. If you're wondering why we only have red numbered cars on the track at the moment, of course, with 34 drivers being the maximum number we have in the championship. Of course, 34 into one qualifying session is not fun, especially with the mixed skill pace that we do have in the field tonight. So anybody represented with the kind of red number board is what we call an AM driver. Anybody with a white number board is referred to as a pro driver. So we're reserving the first 10 minutes for the AM drivers, and then after that, once the clock hits 11 minutes, it's time for the pros to flood out onto the track. In theory, of course, making that all-important circuit position a lot easier for the guys. And of course, tonight, Ted, with the wet weather, circuit position is going to be something you want. You know, you're going to want a clear view. You're not going to want a lot of spray in your face, making this car that's already very tricky to drive kind of even harder.
Yeah, you know, with the spray and the lack of braking, if you like, it'll be very difficult. But just hope these drivers have a bit of sense and, you know, back off into the first corner, because the first corner here is, as we see, is very wide, and you can go 4 wide into it, but it's getting through the corner, especially in these cars. You know, putting a bit of power down about here to get your exit out, but going to be very slippery. And if your setup isn't like good enough to handle the loss of traction on the rear, and it's going to be very difficult. And then that's when the crashes happen. People slide into each other and then make a roadblock. But I have to wait and see with 13 minutes 50 seconds of qualifying left, and some of these guys have got all the AMs got their times in. Just got to put their times down and see where they can end up.
Yeah, got some very competitive times at the moment still. Dan Van Zoofen with the top time of 1:56.885, his first lap out of the pit lane, in fact, when he set that one. You then got Chris Carr with a 1:57.025. Not too much between those two. A little bit of a gap to Dylan Smith with a 1:57.7. We then have Daniel Merchant, who we just watched cross the line, with a 1:57.815. Our very own RCI Kevin Boss with a 1:58.025. And then we have a joint time with him and Cormac Quinn, who was also set at 1:58.025. Fukushio with a 1:58.3. And our very own Tim Ireland with a 2-minute 1:057. So Tim definitely struggling. It was kind of his choice, actually. Tim, sorry, it's Jesper Crombie with the 2-minute 2. Tim Ireland with a 2-minute 1 on that one. And Tim choosing this kind of choosing this car and choosing the season, as he is of course one of our event managers at RCI. So he's kind of brought this on himself, Ted, I would say.
Yeah, but you got to give it to him. He hasn't signed out, and he hasn't made it easier for himself. He's, you know, in the same boat as everyone else, and he's still plodding along, getting the lap times in. You know, not easy. Driving any car in the way, even with your traction controls, TC1s or TC1 and 2s, it's still difficult, especially if you don't have a good setup. So, you know, these guys have got it harder than most, but still not easy in any car.
Definitely so. It's not very easy indeed. I wouldn't like to be one of these drivers here tonight. Dipped into practice earlier on and spoke to them, and a lot of them were complaining about obviously being backwards some of the time, losing the rear end, a lot of drifting, a few complaining of square tyres, and of course with the pit stop night that we do enforce. I imagine a lot of drivers are going to be taking tyres as Tim Ireland comes across the line. No beating his best time previously with a 2-minute 1:5. And just look to the weather in the top right hand side of your screen. Of course, in the next 10 minutes or so, rain is going to be getting heavier, and of course that's been up there for about 8 or 9 minutes. So the pro guys, there you can see definitely a clear kind of drying line forming on the circuit. The rain could get a little bit heavier when the pro guys start filtering onto the track.
Yeah, when I jumped in to have a look around the track earlier in the week, like I said, only one car going around. It was very wet, so we can get pretty puddly on the track. And as you just said, it's pretty dry now, but there's a lot more pros to come out within like the next, I think, minute and it'll start getting a lot drier. But obviously, then we switch on to I think the next day in the game, so that can all change again. But in the race, it should be a nice dry line for them to drive on. It's just got to manage the temperatures with the wet tires, because they can overheat, and that's when they start to grain and blister, and then they become a slower tire.
As we said earlier on in the broadcast, 1.9 bringing big tyre and suspension changes, one of which is how tyres kind of heat, blister and grain themselves. It's very easy now to grain a set of tyres on your first few laps. Done a bit of testing on a 4.5 hour endurance when last weekend just gone, and yeah, it's very, very easy to grain the front tyres of GT3s if you push too hard on your outlap. And of course the GT4s with no tyre blankets, as we keep saying, it's going to be even easier for those guys to pick up kind of flat spot graining and excessive blisters as Tim Ireland now begins to run towards the line. Currently in P8, as you see just to the left there, all the pro guys filtering out. Tim Ireland across the line with a 1:59.465, so a small improvement there from Tim, although not enough to gain a position. And now Nico Kumpu is your car at the head of the train. You've got Andy Boardman just behind him in the kind of Iron Man coloured car. You've got an AM driver there just filtered between Jordan Daly, Blacksmith Engineering cars. You got Harry Phillips just kind of about fourth in the frame as well. So a lot of big names, a lot of RCI regulars. Ted, I'm sure you recognise a lot of the names in the field, and one's about to get very competitive, I feel, between the top guys.
Yeah, it is. Just looking back on the results from the last champ, and the last race, and I watched that from the grandstands, and what a race it was. And Phillips just showing that he can just walk away with a race. Can he walk away with it today? Jordan Daly showing that Phillips isn't just the fastest guy in this car. Daly came fighting for second place for most of it, and then you got Martin Lawrence up there as well, taking second. Daly took the third. So it's one of those where, how are they going to do today with the wet weather? These are some big names in racing. Can they pull off a podium today?
It's going to be a race of consistency, I feel, today. And of course, like you said, last time out at Donington, it was of course Harry Phillips that dominated the stint essentially after passing his teammate Dom Healy to take an early lead. Martin Lawrence snuck his way through the field somehow to P2. Jordan Daly went toe-to-toe with Dom Healy, and silver honours were taken by Dylan Smith, followed by Kevin Boss and Marco third. Of course, more on the championship standings later as we cross between qualifying and the race. But for now, we'll jump back on board for another lap with Nico Kumpu. Of course, you remember Dan Van Zoofan's first lap was very slidey, very opposite locky, and a lot of steering input. So we'll see how much Nico Kumpu can do differently to that one. Of course, turn one, the kink being that little kind of bend in the straight, not really a turn, and this is officially turn 2 on the circuit map of Crowthorne. Then begin your kind of run through turns 3 and 4, the Jusky Sweep, where it kind of pinches in quite hard. So if you go too wide through there, it can become very dangerous indeed. And now nice smooth run through Barbecue, not so much opposite lock already from Nico Kumpu in the 2.56, and now begins his run towards Sunset, although unfortunately no sunsets to be had here today in this wet weather. A little dab of the brakes, flicks it in, a little dab of opposite lock, but not as near as much as Dan Van Zoofen was putting through car there. Now down into Clubhouse turn 7 again. A big slide through the corner. Nico Kumpu really exercising the rack of the Maserati as he comes into the S's of turns 8 and 9. Seems like the curbs are retaining a lot of moisture, so be very careful with kind of how much you decide to use them, and let the car run out wide towards the painted curb on the left. Before coming up the hill to Liacut of turn 10. Very tricky braking zone, little brake on the crest, looks like he locked a wheel up, a little bit of a sideways moment in towards the apex, and then managed to draw it away again before kind of opening up the corners, begin to run down to turn 12 of Mineshaft under the bridge. Got to be very careful, seen a few drivers kind of understeer through here, and they end up way too far to the right for this corner, and you kind of brake diagonally over to the left hand side for the Crocodiles of turn 13. This small bend is turn 14, although again not really a turn, much the same as turn 1, before coming through Cheetah of turn 15 and a run to the final corner of turn 16. A relatively clean lap from Nico Kumpu compared to Dan Van Zoofen. A lot less opposite lock, had a few big moments in the lap, although running towards the line now. Can he already fire himself to the top of the board? And he does so with a 1:56.222, setting the benchmark for the pro guys.
Yeah, Andy Boardman in 5th and Black in 11th. And Daly is in 3rd, and Kumpu now takes 3rd and Nyron's 2nd. So a pretty big gap between the cars. As you see, Phillips on the top straight away with, what's that, an 8/10 gap. So we'll have to see if the other guys can close that gap up. See, Martin Lawrence getting in 6th place now behind the 11 in AM class. But yeah, this 6/10 gap is pretty big. But we'll just have to see. 5 minutes left. Maybe a few mistakes. Everyone's pretty bunched up, as you do on qualifying. They all like to slow down the last 2 corners, and it frustrates a few guys. And you're stuck behind someone who's slower. You really suffer on the lap time. But just have to see. They got like what, 1 or 2 laps to go. Harry Phillips go back in the pit lane for the fresh set as well. Jordan oh, that's not Jordan. Or Jordan joins whoever that was going through Sunset sideways. Well, nice hold by both of those drivers. I think Daly slid just by being put off there. That was a bit scary there, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, always the way. When you follow another car through a corner, you almost kind of mirror his line, although you don't always intend to do so, but you just so happen to kind of follow them, and that's exactly what Daly did there, massively outbraking himself now down into the Crocodiles. Andy Boardman just ahead there. It's very tricky conditions for the pro guys, and you see already Daly getting behind Boardman. The amount of kind of spray that does get kicked up on the windscreen, it's very hard to see through that. Luckily, the Maserati with some very nice tail lights that make them super visible through the spray. Daly getting a much better run, than Andy Boardman out of the last turn towards the line. Gordon Daly P2 with a 1:55.892. Excellent time there, although hampered, of course, by the car in Sunset, and hampered a little bit by Andy Boardman coming out of the last turn. So Daly definitely has some more pace in him. We saw Harry Phillips to the top with a 1:55.377. He jumped straight back to the pits to maybe make some tweaks to tyre pressures, or possibly even to late setup changes. Dan Van Zoofen still in P5. We've got Chris Carr still in P7, and Dan Smith in P10 as well, as Daly backs out there, stops the car, lets Andy Boardman through. Klaus Nyring behind as well. So Daly back to the pits for some adjustments, and the strategies here are very mixed, it seems, at the moment. We've got some drivers coming out and kind of pounding around lap after lap for the full 10 minutes. You've got a couple of drivers stopping after 1 or 2 laps and coming back in to kind of reset their tyres and set up. But the AM drivers, say that very loosely tonight, the AM drivers are still mixing it with these pro guys, Ted.
Yeah, it just shows who's pretty good on the wet track. And Kyalami isn't the easiest, even in the dry. It's curbs are pretty heavy here, but then again, new patch came out, taking curbs in cars is a bit more easier now. So who knows? It's I haven't tried it yet, but we'll get to that at one point this year. But yeah, it's just have to see what happens, because yeah, there's 2 AMs up there. You got the 3rd and 10th. Daly obviously hampered then. Daly would have kept going round. I know how he drives. Drove with him quite a lot. He just made a little mistake and was like, okay, I'll get some new tyres. He likes to keep in the flow. Once he gets going, he stays out as long as he can. Whereas Phillips, we saw, did his lap and then pitted and got some fresh tyres. So everyone's very different. But yeah, just have to see if anyone can knock those AMs out of the top 10.
Just under 2 minutes to go, and some times now coming in much better from the pros. We've got the highest AM now being P7, so slowly being shuffled down the order. Martin Lawrence for the Connection Loss Racing to the line with a 1:56.115, cements himself up into 4th place on the 2nd row of the grid. Matthias Oquidon in the number 21 now begins his run to the line, currently in P13. Little kind of wide line coming out of the last turn. No improvement from him. Ryan Ware, a driver that's been very active in the Discord community chat at the moment, trying to compare setups and whether to go for high wing or low wing. Hopefully he's made his choice on what he's doing there. The 616 now, very clean run to the line. Looks very stable indeed. Not much opposite lock, and does improve with to P13, the 157.017, just ahead of Matthias Aquadont there. So, although we've got very different drivers in the field, we've got very competitive times. Just looking down the board on the left-hand side, Ted, it's definitely going to get a little bit spicy. And like we say, with the AM drivers mixing with the pro drivers, they're of course of no obligation to, yield position, give up their race. They can battle as much as they want. The only thing they don't gain from it is championship points. So it could be, a little bit of very smart heads up driving tonight to see who takes the fight and who just kind of sensibly allows another car through as Lucas Lichten begins his run to final sector. Looking very good so far in the first couple, but hopefully he can remain on his pace to see a slight improvement as he now rounds through the crocodiles towards the final section of turns of Cheetah turn 15. Usually be very careful of the yellow curb on the inside, although as Ted said, the 1.9 update, curbs have kind of almost been eradicated. Cars corner a lot more flat, they take bumps a lot better than they used to, and they haven't got any kind of after wobble as they used to suffer with. And now Lichten to the line, great improvement there, up into P4. Martin Lawrence, can he do anything to counter that? Comes to the line, does indeed, with a P3 with a 155.712. Still got a few more drivers coming through the field yet. Martin Schaefer being one of them, and Tom Shipston now round zero racing to the line. Small improvement, P15, the 157.585. Jordan Daly hopping over the yellow curb. As we said, normally you avoid it, so not this time. Towards the line he goes, round the last corner, the number 197 just gave his car a little bit of a wiggle. He chucks the power down, although very smooth run indeed. Not a lot of time lost. Does improve to a P3 with a 155.575. Harry Phillips, I think he's just about got this one in the bag. Klaus Nyring, of course, already finished. Daly finished, Lawrence finished, and Lichten finished as well. And he improves just that little bit more with a 155.170. And a few more guys just rounding out their laps, Ted.
Yeah, I thought Daly might have a bit more time in there, but then Harry Phillips just coming back out again. But more time gained, just showing, he's really used to that car, and he's pretty much a top dog in this series at the moment. Well, I wonder if anyone can knock him down a peg or two, but seeing the last few cars coming across the line now, Matthew Kingston Lee in the 555, and they go higher than 20th. 17th, yes, a nice improvement there. Christopher Black, I think, moves up to 15th, or they were already there. I didn't see that, but yeah, people just improving a bit by bit, from that bit of dry line that was there, but have to see what the race brings.
Definitely so. Now, quick rundown of your qualifying order. Of course, Harry Phillips and Klaus Nyring lock out your front row. Jordan Daly, Martin Lawrence bringing up the rear. Lichten, Kumbu, Hornberg, Van Zoofen, one of your first AMs, along with Carr in 8th and 9th. Dominicus in 10th, another AM in 11th of Smith. Andy Boardman way out the order in 12th. Keep your eye on him for a big gainer. And it's very interesting to see, again, not all drivers setting the fastest kind of purple sector across a lap. It is a combination of a few sectors that have achieved it. And two drivers there, Daly and Phillips, setting the exact same sector 3 times. So, even with these various kind of conditions and cars and, different driving styles, etc., you can still set the exact same time. And that's the magic of a one-make championship. As we move further down, of course, we've got Ryan Ware, Aquadont, Black, Schaefer, Shipston, Kingston Lee, Merchant, Kevin Boss down there. He's going to want to be making up some positions. He's got a lot of pro guys to catch before he catches the front end of the AM field as well. Quinn, Fukushio, Martinez, Tim Island, Brombean and Healy round out your qualifying. Polyakov and Manzo qualified from the session, I think, due to a rule breach of going out with the AMs. They will start from the back of the grid. And now on to your championship standings. Here we go with Harry Phillips for the Wild Things Racing Team at the top, with teammate Dom Healy bringing up the rear with 58 points. Martin Lawrence, of course, tied with Healy. Jordan Daly on 53. Klaus Nyring on 48. Nico Kumpu on 44. Martin Schaefer on 40. Lucas Lichten on 37, tied with Andy Boardman. And Marco Badowski on 34 rounds out your top 10 in pro. Now moving on to page 2, Matthias Thornberg with 31. Matthew Kingston Lee with 25. Ryan Ware and Manzo tied with 23 apiece. Les Stevenson and Tom Shipston also tied with 21 apiece. Matthias Aquadont with 19. Piotr Dominicus with 15, tied with Christopher Black. Alexander van der Voorde with 14 rounds out your top 20. Finally, moving on to page 3, Daniel Martinez on 11. Polyakov yet to score with 0. Of course, this is his first round of the championship. A couple of sign-ups there from the RPMS, Matt Stevens and Richard Phillips. Martin Broiker, Chris Downing, and Hogeveen are yet to be in the championship. Now, moving on to your AM standings, of course, Dylan Smith heads up the field with 69 points. Kevin Boss on 65. Marco Fucuscio on 53. Chris Carr on 48. Tim Ireland joint with Dan Van Zoofen on 44. Cormac Quinn on 37. Martin Foster, 34. And Jesper Crombeen and Daniel Merchant on 31 apiece rounds out your top 10 in AM. On to page 2, of course, much smaller. Callum Kerrigan, Van der Velden, Marcos Brown, and Varga have all signed out of the championship. 10 AM drivers competing for that coveted championship title. And my, that's a very different scene to what we have here as we see the rain is still coming down. Harry Phillips on pole, of course, with the Wild Things racing team livery. Very iconic livery, that one. Kind of see it in a lot of series now, whether it be ACC, iRacing, across the board. It's very recognizable and certainly a great kind of brand striking there. Then see field of colors. He takes a very wet and soggy grid walk for us as me and Ted stay nice and dry up here in the comms box, of course, giving you a slightly closer look up to all of the custom liveries. Lucas Lichten with a very iconic kind of anime-styled livery. Sure, Stewie is a fan of that one. Of course, a few set rule liveries we do have with the Pirelli logos, the ACC logo on the front. So kind of everything else is up to drivers' discretion. A couple of drivers choosing the in-game Sky livery, of course, making it very tricky for us up here in the booth. We then have Blacksmith Engineering fielding 3 of the same cars, making that even easier to identify who is who. Andy Boardman in a very kind of Iron Man-esque coloured livery. We always see him in kind of red, golden, black, sometimes switched up with a bit of green and yellow as well. And Ryan Ware with another custom livery there to your right-hand side, the pit crew by Bunatics, I believe, a very old livery made for him many moons ago and has now been adapted into RCI as the engines begin to fire. Of course, the lights coming on. You do want some lights on today. It's probably a very smart move to run with some form of lights so people can see you, of course. Tom Shipston, Ground Zero Racing, orange and black colours to the right-hand side. Kevin Boss, this is the man that's kind of competing at the moment for a championship lead, although has a lot of pro drivers between himself and AM drivers ahead of him. So he's going to want to be making up some moves. And, of course, Tim Ireland towards the back with his teammate as well. It's a very tricky grid. Grid looks a little bit wetter than we saw in qualifying. Of course, dry line has not been kind of formed yet. So with all drivers circulating around Ted, I don't think it's going to be too long before we see conditions improving slightly. So look to the weather forecast. Rain is getting heavier in 10 minutes time.
Yeah, it sure is. It's just have to have. Ugh, I've lost my words, John. We just have to see how it goes because I need to put them teeth back in. Because obviously new tyre model. Have to see how these GT4s handle these wet weather tyres. I've heard from a few people that the GT3s wet tyres feel a bit more slippier, obviously because the tyre wall now moves around, lower pressure it gets a bit softer, higher pressure is a bit stiffer. At lower pressure you get a bit more grip but a lot more heat, and then if you've got a bit more pressure in the tyre it gives you more stability. So they'll have to see what. We won't know what the drivers are running. Obviously, they know what is best for them. Depends what track they ran on. Have they ran on just a full wet track with themselves, or have they had a few people on like earlier on before qualifying? They had a bit of practice, a bit of dry line probably forming, so they will know where their pressure should be and the temperatures of the tyres. It's all going to be a bit different. GT3s apparently were very slidey, not like it used to be. But they still said it was pretty good for what it is. You know, it's wet weather. You shouldn't be going flat through certain corners. You need to lift, and the cars all act differently. So we just have to see how these Maseratis drive on this track, and obviously Kyalami is very known for its drainage system. I didn't know if you knew that, John.
Yeah, I think I saw a stream from Aris a while ago where he kind of went behind the scenes of Kyalami, and if you look behind the wall just after the S's, I believe, if you run up the hill. If you look behind the wall, there's a rain. Water does in-game flow downwards on the hill. Okay, so Kyalami, like you say, Ted, excellent for drainage, and I'm sure it's going to be getting a good workout today, as of course conditions are very bad. A lot of drivers now checking up for the 2x2 formation. Of course, rolling start as always in ACC, no standing start to add here. And just a quick rundown of the rules, of course. We do have a mandatory pit stop with the pit window opening the 3 minutes into the race. Of course, to qualify, you do need to take a minimum of 1 litre of fuel. And we are leaving tyre choice completely up to the drivers. So keep your eye on the pit stop timer to see who can be a gainer and a loser, taking a new set of wet Pirellis. Although now, as we come to the start of the race, mind the house, Stewie, mind the pit lane building, as he takes a very lovely shortcut and beats the cars to the last corner. And just look at the grey South African sky there. It's not going to be improving over the next hour or so. Drivers 2x2 now to the line, waiting for the green. A car in the pit lane already sliding down the order. They will start as the train goes past. Very long hold here at Kyalami as always, and the green flag now drops. Harry Phillips to your right hand side, Klaus Nyring to the left. You've got Daly and Lawrence just behind there. Watch as the track opens up. Of course, Ted said earlier in qualifying up to 4 wide, although some drivers just about braving 2 to 3 wide. Of course, we now begin the pinch into the next section of corners. This is where it normally goes wrong into turns 3 and 4 as drivers come back on to the circuit. Everybody taking a little bit of caution. It's great to see them exercising this kind of careful mentality. We saw a race not so long ago for the esports guys that ended in absolute tears as they strung through the turn 3 and 4 of Jiski Squeak. But I think looking at the track map, Ted, I don't want to curse it just yet, but it looks relatively clean. We've got one driver, of course, starting from the pit lane. That's the car at the back of the shot. You see the car number 6. But everybody else seems relatively clean. A few cars going wide through Sunset, although coming back on just in time for Clubhouse, and nobody really being upset or shoved out. It's amazing, Ted.
Yeah, it's nice to see, especially with these cars. I keep saying they've got no assist like the other cars, like the other GT4s. They have TC and ABS. It's just nice to see these guys are taking care. You know, they don't want to ruin anyone else's race. Don't want to ruin their own race. You know, because a spin out, a load of damage is just going to end your race there and then. You don't want to end it within a minute or 30 seconds of the first corner. We see a big group of them getting to the top of the mountain there, and going down mineshaft 2x2. But yeah, it's nice.
Sorry, go Dad. I was going to say 2x2 through mineshaft, not really a good move, although some drivers making it stick. Daniel Merchant to the outside here, Ryan Ware on the inside into the Crocodiles turn 13. Of course, keep the inside line for the next couple of turns, so it's definitely worth while if you can make it stick. And he has done a little bump for Ryan Ware though from Daniel Merchant, sends him wide over the grass and the gravel and the extra curb. He's going to have to lift off. Tom Shipston dives into the pits. We're now 3 wide into the last turn. Daniel Merchant on the middle, Ryan Ware to the inside, and Black around the outside. He's got a great run down the long straightaway into turn 1 and 2. He's definitely going to clear Merchant, I think, before then, but two drivers kind of coasting together. Be very careful you don't start banging doors and wheels, because it could be very detrimental, especially in the form of the train that is forming behind you guys. Got to be very careful, of course, of everybody else's race around you as well. But Ryan Ware, I think, has just about made that move stick. Daniel Merchant still remains behind him, and Black gained a position there on Merchant, sorry, as Polyakov fights his way through the field. Of course, a man that started dead last already finds himself up into P11, Ted.
Yeah, and I was just about to mention the number 6 we saw in the pit lane, Dominicus. I think forgot to get in the car and so that start from pit lane. Has already caught the back of the pack by just having the easy drop. Oh, we see a spin at the top of the hill.
And this is what caused the kind of bunch up. It looked like Black maybe for the Blacksmith Engineering Maserati, and this allowed Tom Shipston a run as well down into mineshaft. So yeah, very interesting there. And another race replay. the archive. I think this is more the beginning of it as we come into the hairpin here. It looks like Polyakov bumped Ryan Ware, then bumped one of the Blacksmith Engineering cars around. So Steward's going to be looking at that one, Ted. And of course, we do have a team of live stewards for Split 1 tonight. Of course, top splits in RCI tend to get the live stewarding and the broadcast. So, of course, if you do want to be a part of this, we do have plenty of events on the website, which I will touch on later on in the podcast. Head on over to racerci.com if you do want to see an early snippet of what I'm talking about here. But riding on board with Andy Boardman, looking back to Polyakov. Polyakov, of course, a driver who is very, very quick. Did initially do pre-qualifying, Ted. I think he either topped it or very near top 2 or 3 on that one, but didn't sign up until Kyalami, so a very late starter, but definitely has very good pace in the Maserati as he puts it to Andy Boardman's rear quarter panel coming into turn 1. Of course, the outside becomes the inside, and he's got the Blacksmith Engineering car ahead of him, possibly going to kind of hold him up through turn 2, although I think he's just about muscled Andy Boardman out enough to give him the run into the next set of corners, and he's got the overlap going towards Barbecue, and I think he's just about got the move done. That's Polyakov up to P10, Andy Boardman down to P11.
Yeah, Polyakov was first in the pre-qualifying ahead of Phillips, funny enough. So yeah, definitely got pace there. Just got to make his way through the field. That's the only thing. Go around the outside of the AM car through Sunset. The AM car, funny enough, 104 decides to sort of let him go a little bit. No point fighting. Like you said, they can fight. Don't need to let them through. There's no points, and the car doesn't want to ruin their chance of second place points at this time in the race. And 54 minutes, basically 55 minutes left of the race. Don't want to ruin it.
Still a long way to go, of course. 55 minutes to go. A couple of drivers already taken pit stops. Tom Shipston being one of them for the race car. Boss elected to take an early stop, so any tyre choices are way out of the window now. They're going to have to make these tyres last the duration of the race, because of course you don't want to be coming down pit lane for a second time. That's going to be very, very slow indeed. Martin Schaefer for the Seaton Hybrid Investment Trust car, the number 13. A very clever play on words there. If you can work it out at home, I'm sure it will make you laugh, as it did me last week when Jesse Lee pointed it out to me. And a few comedy names in the field, shall we say. Matthias Thornberg was one of them when we view him. Keep an eye out for his team name. Again, another classic one for the books. But riding on board now, Martin Schaefer. We're going to see if the slipstream effect gets any kind of effort here on the back of Aquadon in the 21. Of course, the slipstream effect being greatly improved, I felt, in 1.9. Of course, the tyres have less resistance now, so the slipstream much more beneficial than it maybe used to be.
I've not seen anything of that as such, but yeah, by the looks of it, slipstream, because GT4s weren't really known for their slipstream. They don't really move the air like a GT3 car does, and other cars are much faster and have a lot more downforce attachments, if you like. But yeah, it looks like it is actually working a bit better than it used to. It could just be to do with the 1.9 physics, but I don't know as much as some others will, but could even be tyres. That's another point. Could be the tyres.
Yeah, of course. Very steep learning curve when the new update drops as significant as 1.9 was. So everybody's kind of finding their feet. Everything you thought you knew about ACC has now gone out the window. So if you still not tried ACC, or you tried 1.8 and kind of didn't enjoy it as much, 1.9 certainly probably will be your cup of tea if tyres and suspension were your two main issues with the game. I, for one, absolutely loving it at the moment. I've driven probably more in the past couple of weeks than I have in the last half a month or so. Cars are a lot more kind of well behaved, should we say. There's less of the random bouncing nature of them. It's definitely an update to get your teeth into. So if you haven't considered it already, definitely get it going. As we see now, Martin Schaefer on to the back of Aquadon once again, looks much stronger coming down the hill. Can he make a move into Cheetah? Of course not. Covered off very nicely indeed by Aquadon in the 21 ahead, and of course run out towards the final section of corners. We've got a slow car ahead. It looks like Smith in the 25. He could be the kind of roadblock at the moment, and Martin Schaefer thinks, I'm having no more of this. This is my time to come into the pit lane, and very careful on pit entry, Ted, because you don't want to be picking up penalties either.
No, and Kyalami's pit entry is a funny one, especially when it's wet. You don't want to mess up your braking point. You don't want to slide into the pits. it's very difficult. I've got to drive through here, or speeding into the pit lane. Just sped the tiniest bit over the limit, and yeah, come out the pit lane and had to have a drive through. Oh, we see a car backwards at sunset. No, it's not. Oh, it's cheetah. Oh, just caught the curb there. The wet curb, not a very nice thing to touch, especially in these cars, and stuck backwards. That's not what we want.
Always very awkward to kind of rejoin a racing line. Of course, you don't want to be pulling in front of people, and at the same time, you don't want the auto clutch to do that weird thing where it lets go suddenly and spins you around. As we see Polyakov and Tornberg side by side. I believe this is out of this is down to the S's. Yeah, this is the clubhouse to the S's. A move done there for Polyakov in the number 36. So Polyakov now up into P8. Tornberg down into P9. And Daniel Merchant now coming under fire from Black in the 917 Blacksmith Engineering. Maserati up the hill. Thought he'd have a look. They couldn't quite make a gap, although up the inside they go. Daniel Merchant kind of gives a little bit of room, but almost chops the nose off of Black. It's a very sketchy time racing side by side, especially in the wet with opponents that you're not always used to running with. It can be very tricky, Ted.
Yeah, that was a close move right there. I honestly thought there was going to be a bit of a touch, but got to go in nicely. So far, we haven't had anything too scary, and I think the stewards are just sitting there twiddling their thumbs right now, which is a good thing. Yeah, we like to keep our stewards busy, but we like to also have a nice, clean race with nice, clean moves. We see a lot of them in our races at RCI. You know, we have the odd mistake and a crash, but for the most time, it's pretty clean. Drivers respecting each other's space, which is a nice thing to see.
We are all human. We all do make mistakes from time to time, but it's of course how you learn from those mistakes and progress yourself as a driver. And of course, RCI, we are very friendly at giving you advice in the form of live stewards. They'll always put a little note on the end to let you know why you got the penalty or what happened and what you can do maybe next time to avoid such a thing. As Polyakov touches the curb, as you said earlier, Ted, big slide, very, very slippery indeed on those curbs, retaining a lot of moisture in both the AstroTurf, of course, and the painted surface, not giving off a lot of grip. And of course, if you do want to be a part of anything here at RCI, we do have a fully fledged website over on racerci.com, and this week's calendar sees us with a lot of action kind of focused towards the end of the week, with Friday beginning their new championship start, the Sprint Challenge Season 11, bringing of course the new machinery of the 296, the 992 and the Huracan Evo to your screens here on RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, as Christopher Black is still sniffing at the back of Daniel Merchant, coming up the hill now into turn 10 and 11. He had a look last time. Will he have a look this time? Merchant locks up that front inside wheel. You saw it stop spinning there, and just about managed to get the car drawn up for turn 10 and 11 as they now head down the hill towards Mineshaft. Of course, with the the new cars coming to RCI TV, we then have sign-ups still going for that, and pre-qualifying with round 1 taking stage at Barcelona. Saturday this week as well begins Night Owl Season 13 as well, giving those on a different time zone to give their chance to join some RCI events. There's still, of course, time to sign up and pre-qualify for that one. Round 1 taking those guys to Zolder. And a few sign-ups have opened just this week. Wednesday sees another team championship, whether you do attempt it as a team or solo. Season 4 takes 80-minute races around the calendar for some exciting action in GT3 machinery, with sign-ups and pre-queue open for that one. And Thursday sign-ups also open, where we give the GT4s a centre stage with Season 13. Pre-qualifying at Paul Ricard for that one, with season beginning on May 11th, so still quite a few weeks to go to get yourself adjusted to the GT4 cars, if that is something that is into your interest. And I've done a few laps in the M4 and the Ginetta, Ted, and the Ginetta, very, very nice car to drive now, very agile, very light. You can really feel the weight transfer and the kind of grip that it does have. So not yet touched the GT4s. I suggest you do in 1.9.
Oh, I might have to have a go at that. It seems as I'm wanting to do the Thursday champ again. I've done it once in the Ginetta. I was the Pigeon Boy, and then I did it again in the Alpine. I wasn't a fan of the Alpine, but that was before the update dropped, so I have to give it a good go again and see what I like, and might take the Aston line. Have to wait and see. But yeah, Night Owl is just around the corner. Well, that is my champ. That's my little baby. I like to run on a Saturday night. And with Jesse Lee, we get a little bit looser on the commentary than we normally do on a weekday street. Oh, someone's off. Is that Martin Lawrence on the last corner there?
Certainly looked like the connection lost. Racing car was up in P3. Jordan Daly now promoted to P3, although Daly looks like possibly slowing down was their contact. Let's see a race replay. Martin Lawrence, we see a reaction, almost an instant replay of what Kronbein did just a few laps ago. Lawrence then parked it sideways in the middle of the road. Stream of cars coming very heads up, driving to grab reverse and back towards the edge of the circuit, although Martin Lawrence lost it all on his own and curbed, claiming another victim, Ted.
Yeah, I know there's someone else from a cropper at the final corner. It's a 917 I can see on the map is slow, and Christoph Black as well. So they've done the same thing. Oh no, it's lost it on exit. Just too much throttle. Obviously, I keep saying no traction control. It's just, especially in the wet, it's the trickiest car to do, and it now got front damage and hasn't done the pit stop. So they have to fix the damage in the pit stop. That's pretty hard into the wall. But Martin Lawrence, yeah, like you said, he already lost it coming through Cheetah and just got sideways like before the exit of it. So already sort of losing there, touched the grass and just went, and luckily got going again quite quickly. Yeah, it's I thought it was a chill race now, John. It's just gone a little bit 1 to 5 at the minute.
Yeah, always the way with the Maserati. It seems to kind of start off in a bit of a lull, and then it just kind of explodes kind of midway through the race. Of course, we did see at the start, rain, of course, got heavier in 10 minutes time, so drivers probably fighting a little bit more moisture than they used to, as we see Kevin Boss around. No, Kevin, what's happened here? Let's have a look through Sunset. A big slide on the exit, flicks it one way, pendulum effect the other, and luckily kept it out of the wall, although very awkward place to get going again. Versus slightly back on to the track, of course, not where you want to be,
No.
facing stationary on the exit of Sunset. So Kevin Boss not having a great time here tonight, and Polyakov, another driver, not having a great put my teeth back in now, not having a great time either. 5-second penalty from the stewards, Jake Boswell, the guy reporting tonight for them. We have an incident on lap 1, turn 10. Involving the 36, the 616 and the 197. 5 seconds for the 36 for avoidable contact with the 616. 197 spin was an incorrect racing incident. We then have a lap 1, turn 15, involving the 145 and the 616. A warning for the 145. The 145 makes contact, forces the 616 wide and off track. No position gained. And finally, for now, incident lap 3, turn 4, involving the 145 once again, and the 917, a racing incident. So the 917 understeering into the 145, minor contact. So for those of you new to ACC, wondering when Polyakov might be serving that 5-second penalty, he will, of course, be taking it in the pit stop. So if you take tyres and fuel, for example, you'll be held for 30 seconds in your pit box. Of course, with a 5-second penalty, that will then become 35 seconds. If you have taken your pit stop, of course, the penalty will be added on to the end of the race. And a big wiggle through mineshaft there for Polyakov. Sets up a great move, though. Can he get the car drawn up the inside of Lichten? Just about makes it stick, I think. Has the inside line for the next section of corners, although still side by side. Be very careful. It's super slippy. Lichten, big slide around the outside there. Polyakov through just before the last corner, but very well held there from Lichten.
That was impressive, I've got to say. In the rain, in any car, that's impressive. But you know, on the grass, you expect to just be spun round instantly, sort of thing, and not be able to save the car. But yeah, really, really well held. Probably not go too wide through there again. Wouldn't recommend any car, but it didn't end in disaster. So too bad.
Yeah, very heads up, kind of fair driving, I would say. Just about enough room left, and Lichten with a fantastic slide around the outside. So drift of the race, I think, so far goes to Lichten, although just over 40 minutes to go. There's still plenty of time to get those drift entries in, and we did very nicely last time at Donington. Dom Healy, I think, with the best one, and Martin Lawrence might be hearing me up in the comms box as he gets very sideways through sunset. I wonder if he's tuned in on another browser window, quite possibly. I know a few drivers do that indeed, and now we see a helmet cam. There we go, a little dab opposite lock, and then a big armful of opposite lock as he reaches the exit of the corner. And great to see these guys. You know, it's thing with one make championships, Ted, is like we said in the early broadcast, it's that time when you can kind of pick a car that you don't want to, you know, you don't necessarily would pick, as we see I think that's, Merchant, yeah, is indeed Daniel Merchant going very wide in sunset, going backwards down the field at the moment. Dominicus now up into P14. Of course, he started from the pit lane, but he said earlier, of course, if you ran, for example, Thursday's GT Championship, you wouldn't necessarily pick the Maserati. Obviously, if you want to be competitive, certainly wouldn't. Anyway, Jordan Daly very wide, allows Polyakov now up side by side. Daly squeezes him to the inside. Polyakov just about makes it stick, and this now brings Lichten into the field as well. Daly peels off into the pit lane, says, you know what, I've had enough of this. Time for me to take my stop. See you later, guys. Catch you up in about 20 minutes time or so. But Polyakov definitely on a very aggressive comeback from the back of the grid. Now finds himself up into P3. Race replay, what happened here? Daly went very wide, allowed Polyakov straight up the inside. Daly tried to close the door, but it was too little too late. Polyakov was already alongside, and Polyakov, a very feisty driver indeed, doesn't usually back out of moves. Of course, a driver for the Arlas Esports team, did very well in our GT Championship not so long ago. And yeah, not really sure what was happening with Daly's defense, but it almost like he was caught napping, Ted, and just thought, oh, there's a car there, I best close him off.
Yeah, I think the steward's going to have to say something about that. Maybe a warning, but yeah, I don't think Daly should have done that. But I know what going through Daly's head there was basically, no, don't go for it. It's cheater. Wait, and then you can get me. I'm pitting anyway. But yeah, Daly, I think Daly got a little bit hot-headed, as he sometimes does, but it wasn't too bad. Could have been worse. One of them could have been in the wall, but hey, they both come out alive. But yeah,
I've never heard Daly and hot-headed in the same sentence ever. He is a very calm driver. I have no idea what you're talking about, Ted Edwards, but certainly would like to be a fly on the wall in that car when that move happened. It definitely would have been very colourful language. We probably shouldn't be broadcasting on RCI TV, but looking back now, from the back of Lucas Lichten to Martin Lawrence, of course. Lawrence with a spin in the last turn, so he's on a bit of a comeback drive as well, trying to claw back a few more positions for connection lost racing. And a big slide now from Martin Lawrence as well. I think Lawrence is definitely a contender for the drift of the race as well. Maybe we should put a poll in chat next week or something if it is raining again to see who did get that one. But just wanted to touch back on my point, of course, you wouldn't normally pick the Maserati in a GT4 race, so it allows everybody to be on the same playing field, you know, in the same boat with no TC and ABS. And, you know, it brings a kind of fun element almost back to ACC. You know, you see far too many GT3 events these days, and GT4 just doesn't get a lot of love. But I'm hoping with the 1.9 update, it's going to bring a lot more people back into these cars, because they really do drive quite well now.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see some stuff going on again. Yeah, I put a poll out the other day actually about what you guys want us to host, or in one-off endurance races you'd like us to do, and I think the GT3 GT4 multi-class was at the top by a big margin, to be fair. So to keep an eye out, we might be sticking one of those up soon. And yeah, you can drive some GT4s, because I know a lot of people do like them. Some people don't like to be in the faster car. Some like to be, let's say, in the back market car, letting other people pass, and you know, being a slow boy for once.
Always an experienced driver. It's incredible the difference in like aero and grip a GT has in comparison when you get to a mid corner. So you need some very heads-up driving if you're entering any multi-class event. And of course, as Ted says, we do have a poll going in the Discord. You can check out a link in the description below. Head on over and vote for what you guys want to see us host next for a one-off endurance. And I, for one, did vote the GT3 and GT4 multi-class, because I want a shot in the GT4s again. It's going to be very interesting on that one. And if you do want to drive some GT4s, of course, Thursday's championship here at RCI will be dedicated, as we see a big lock up there from Piotr Dominicus up into the top end of the hill. Just about managed to keep that off and lost a bit of ground ahead to Ryan Ware and Smith, although not too much. It could have been certainly a lot worse, and drivers are going to be getting caught out now by the tyres wearing down. Of course, not too sure who has done a long stint on these tyres, Ted. It's one of those things where if you haven't done a long stint, you're not going to know how the tyres evolve. You're only really going to know how they go over a lap or so, and you can get some very weird grip scenarios happening at the end of the stint, especially if you've been very hard on the Pirellis. And like we said earlier, this is probably one of the first races of GT4s on the wets, I would say, for 1.9.
Yeah, I would say so. So it's a good thing to look at to see what people are doing. I'm just looking at pit stops. Obviously, we're just about getting to halfway into the race, but some people already did their pit stops earlier on. And the longest one, the shortest one was Daly, lap 9 with 31 seconds. So he just did fuel. He just did the one that did fuel and went again. Whereas Andy Boardman did lap 6. So that was 6 laps ago. And it was 1 minute, so he took tyres again for some reason. And we have a car off in the S's. I wonder what that yellow flag is. Number 18. Oh no, from being off again. Oh, lost it going in.
Nothing you could really do there. It's kind of turned it in the back end, just let go. A very strange thing indeed, and then you've got to wait for the big train of cars to pass. Very heads-up driving there from Crombreen. Kudos to him for waiting rather than just banging it in reverse and trying to get going again. So Pirellis aren't really the best conditions. Dry line certainly forming now as you look to the track surface, and of course look to the top right-hand side. Weather forecast: rain decreasing in the next 10 and in the next half an hour, so the circuit should dry out a little bit easier and make it that a little bit better for these rallies towards the end. Just a quick update from stewards. A few reports. Lap 9, turn 15, involving the 1:40.36, racing in contact. Lap 10, turn 1, involving the 1:71.256, racing in contact. Lap 9, turn 16, involving the 1:40, Ubidi, racing incident, minor contact. Not sure what that note's about. And lap 10, turn 16, involving the 36, the 197. A warning for the 197 contact, but still nothing on. That is the Daly incident. So Daly with a warning there for avoidable contact. So rounding upon that one. So Daly is in the steward's eyes. So he's clean for the next half an hour or so, Ted.
Yeah, I was correct with that warning. I was I think the last night hour season we didn't stream. We didn't have a broadcast, unfortunately. People were busy doing stuff, as you know, things happen in the real life, if you like. So I was sat in the steward's box listening in and just trying to learn a bit, trying to learn what the thought process is and what is this penalty and what's that penalty. I obviously know what a takeout is. If you know, we all know what a takeout is. It'll be a drive-through if you just leave them and you go away. But if you wait for them and let them come back again, then normally it's a 15-second. But I was listening in and picked up a few things, so that helped nicely. But Jordan Daly was yellow flagged and decided to pull the garage door down, as we just saw there. That's what that car was.
Yeah, very quick retirement there. Not sure what happened on that one. But Daly retired out of the race, so his attempt is no more. It's Dylan Smith now and Tom Shipston come together nearly. And Jesper Crombeen round again on the inside of what looks like turn 10 or 11 at the top of the hill. And Crombeen, I think, another one back to the garage, although I think I do see his icon moving. He is moving, back moving again. So kudos to Crombeen for sticking this one out. It's a very tricky race, and you know, it catches out everybody at some point. Crombeen just on the worse end of it at the moment, but still just over half an hour to go, so still plenty of time for mistakes, especially with the tyres wearing down. We're going to see a race replay here from what happened to Crombeen coming up to the top of the hill. Ran too far to the right. Looks like he collected the curb, and that Daniel Merchant possibly 21.
Matthias.
That's Aquadon. Yeah, Matthias Aquadon there being involved in that incident. Big damage down the left side of the Crombeen car. The number 18 now chooses to come into the pits, so probably going to be a lengthy stop for those guys getting that damage sorted.
Yeah, I wonder what the stewards say about that one. I don't know what they're going to say about that one because obviously the car had already lost it, but then obviously it's the car behind that needs to pay a bit of attention to what is happening in front of them. So yeah, sucks. You know, you've already span twice now. You know, it's a very hard car to drive. Kudos for them to keep going, but then for them to spin and then get hit, that's not great. But there's another. Tim Island is off the track. It's that Cheetah. Oh, I think clipped Cheetah and then went what? Oh dear.
And a small bonk to the finish it off. Tim Ireland into the wall. Cheetah as well. Kevin Boss goes through there on your screens, and so did Tim Ireland's teammate on that one of Martina in the 91. But Dominicus and Aquadon's battle now hotting up. Of course, Aquadon with the front end damage from collecting Crombeen earlier goes defensive into the hairpin. Dominicus to the outside. We've seen him try this one before. Didn't quite work, although the dry line certainly on the outside, trying to get the switch back to give himself a better run down into Mineshaft, although nothing to be had here. The gap is still too big for Dominicus to make a move. I don't think he's going to be in a position to lunge, especially without ABS. That's going to be a move that could go horribly wrong very quickly. He closes up very nicely on the brakes into Cheetah. Could he make a move into the last corner?
Yeah, could be possible. Many moves made into that last corner, and let's just get the exit right. But I think we've seen a lot of people spin out. A few yellow flags here and there. I wonder if tyres are getting a little bit weak. Obviously, wet tyres normally last longer than dry tyres anyway, but if you're running that dry line quite a lot, are you wearing them down more now from the update? Are you running them a bit too hot and not hitting the wet patches of the track to cool them down? So are they graining more than the other cars? It's something we don't know, and obviously the drivers know more than what we do until we get our hands and just have a little bit of practice in the rain and to see what these wet tyres handle like now. But you know, it's all sorts of things could be happening.
Did some practice in Dubai last week. And if you push the dry tyres in the first 2 or 3 laps too hard when they're coming into pressure and temperature, can cause very bad graining on the tyres, which then towards the end of the stint they just turn to mush with, like, you know, you're not even at the hour mark and you've lost the best of the front tyres already. It's a very tricky tyre to manage in early stages, and towards the end of the race a lot of drivers did do just that. They pushed too hard in the early phases. Come the last section of their stint, they were just understeering everywhere. So going to apply the same logic, I would say, to the wet tyres. There's a big wiggle there from Dominicus coming out the top of the hill down to Mineshaft. It's very close indeed to Aquadon ahead in the number 21. Of course, this is for championship points and position, indicated, of course, by the white number board next to the names. Of course, anybody who's just tuning in wondering what the red and the white is. The red, of course, is the AM drivers. I say that with kind of finger quotations because as you can see, Dan Van Zoofen and Carr are certainly sticking it to the pro guys with the white number board. So AM by name, but not necessarily AM by nature. And it's the wonderful thing with wet weather, Ted. Of course, it can throw that large curveball to the drivers that are sometimes a lot more competent in the wet than they might find their pace in the dry. And it offsets them very nicely, as Van Zoofen, of course, up in 7th and Carr in 9th. You've got Quinn in 14th. So you got a good healthy sprinkle of AM drivers in with the pros.
Yeah, it's a surprising that this track, Kyalami, is not the easiest tracks, especially in the wet, to drive cars. But you know, the AM drivers showing, you know, they still got the good pace that I would have expected that to have been last week at Donington Park. But no, it's here in the rain at Kyalami.
I'm apparently being told by our broadcaster Stewie that a wise man once said, "Rain, the great equalizer." Jesse Lee, 20 something, some kind of RCI broadcast at some point, quoted from. But yeah, Jesse Lee, a big fan of the rain, leveling the playing field, of course, with the kind of lower end of the drivers, should say, as Dominicus now finds that move on Aquadon through the S's. Very tidily done indeed. He's now just got to hold it and not focus too much in the mirror and kind of outdrive himself. shall we say, and Stewie just saying at least he thought it was Jesse. So it couldn't have been, it might have been, who knows? Somebody of RCI said it once, and it's now here. So Rain, the great equaliser. Have that written on your lounge wall at home, and ask your guests what it's all about. As Martin Lawrence comes into 5th place, still behind Lichton. Lichton putting up a great fight. We saw him with some really good pace at Donington, and he's just kept that momentum going here at Kyalami. You know, Martin Lawrence, I'm sure you know, you've raced with him a few times, Ted. He's very quick.
I've raced against him, and every time we see him in his mirror, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get overtaken now. he's really quick. He's a quick guy. We've already seen him spin coming out of the crocodile into the last corner. He was full stop on the track, and a load of cars went past him, and he's come back up to 5th, fighting for the 4th place. Maybe, well, being as 36 has got a 5-second penalty, most likely he could get a podium in this race with the spin. So just goes to show Martin is a pretty quick guy, especially in this car.
And it occurs to the commentator there with spin as a big opposite moment from Martin Lawrence into Clubhouse, and a slower car there. That could be possibly Octagon or one of the other drivers that's elected to take the only in-game livery for the Maserati, making it super easy for us up here in the comms box. So note to drivers, if you could pick some unique liveries to make it a little bit easier, that would be a lot easier for us here. And just want to say, of course, a quick thank you to everybody at home tuned into RCI TV, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube. Of course, we are trying to grow the Twitch side of things a little bit more, so head on over there and drop us a follow. That would be greatly appreciated. And of course, on YouTube, the like and subscribe button and all that good stuff. And Tim Ireland off once again. What's he done here? Let's have a look. Out of the hairpin. Bit too much gas, I think, Ted, and found the Armco.
Bit too much gas, and then looked like he was going to hold it because he left it off, and looked like he put his foot back down a little bit to get the car going left, but instead it went forward, and now he's got a big crunch front. But he hasn't done his pit stop, so he can still repair it and get his mandatory pit stop done, but it will put him quite far back from where he is now. But that's a really crunch front end, like we just saw from the TV cam there. Tim, he's not having a good race.
He's definitely not. There's a few drivers that are probably going to want to use Kyalami for their drop round, and of course we do allow drivers a drop round in the majority of RCI championships. We do understand here that, of course, sometimes life can get in the way, and it's not fair to detriment your championship just because something's cropped up. So we do allow your lowest point score, whether it be a no-show or, of course, a very bad point show in the race, to kind of be discounted from your result. So why in the early days of the RCI championships, you tend to see a few people tied on points. Of course, drop round taken into effect, it kind of affects there. And a good drift there from Lichton. That's going in the drift of the race, although not good because it's allowed Martin Lawrence right up alongside into the S's. Lichton on the inside, tries to go deep, goes a little bit too deep, and slides very nicely through the S's once again, although not what you want to do when Martin Lawrence is sniffing at your diffuser. And this allows Lawrence a great run up the hill to the outside in turn 10, slightly later on the brakes. Can he hang it around the outside? I don't think he can, as drivers a little bit of a rub there, although all is fair and well. And Nico Kumpu sitting behind him, P6 Ted, I've just noticed from the helicam, having a great view of this. And of course, if this ends in tears, Kumpu's set to gain 2 places.
I was about to say, I saw a real life racing clip early today, and someone was doing, oh my, Lawrence sideways! So it's Kumpu! Oh! What just happened? Oh no, I wonder if Kumpu got a little bit put off then from Martin. Oh yeah.
I think that's tandem drift of the race right there, nearly.
It
I
is,
think
yeah.
we're going to have a solo and a tandem section like they do in D1 GP in Japan. This is great. Great stuff here, of course. No ABS, no TC. These cars are a big handful to drive, even for the big names like Martin Lawrence and Nico Kumpu. And Kumpu certainly the biggest loser in that one. He's just disappeared from the back of this fight. You see him there, just coming into the back of the shot. But yeah, big shame there. We were just saying he was in prime spot for getting a couple of positions gained, and Fukushio now comes out just ahead of Tim Ireland. Probably a smart move with Tim's front end damage. I don't think that car's going to be driving too well.
Yeah, and I don't think him going wide there was the car broken. I think he was just letting the other car through, which was quite sensible, because by the look of that car is not race worthy. It needs a bit of, oh my god, all my time. Rastini's cutting. Oh my god, I'm just getting cut off left, right, and centre with this little battle going here for 4th place.
Yeah,
Jeez, John.
great scenes here from Lichton and Lawrence. Still very fair, a little bit of a wiggle through the S's, but Lawrence just about manages to make it stick. The 171 Connection Lost racing car now back up into P4. He can now begin the assault on the back of Polyakov, who is 12 seconds to the good nearly after this fight has kind of ended. And Lichton might even come back if he can find the pace in the Maserati behind, although Lawrence with great drive out of the top of the hill. And yeah, just want to say as well as a thank you to you guys at home, of course, to our partners here at RCI. Of course, AK Esports need no introduction for providing our server solutions here at RCI, and they do management, hardware sector as well. They've dabbled in, so do go and check them out. They can help build. If you want to learn how to drive one of these cars, possibly driver61.com could be the place for you. 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code with a link in below. They'll have something that fits your needs. If you become the Rainmaster in a Maserati, then go and ask them the question. They can teach you. Maybe you could be doing Drift of the Week. Fanatec, of course, another brand that needs no introduction, a leading brand in sim racing hardware. And we do have an affiliate link with those guys in the description below if you're looking to pick up some hardware. Dom Healy, if you're watching, possibly looking at you with your DD purchase, maybe on the horizon on that one. We then got digitalmotorsports.com, a new partner to us here at RCI of this year. They do offer a number of products and services from hardware, sim rig builds, virtual driving experiences, and corporate events. Check them out below if you see if they can help you. And last but no means least, Go Setups, of course, one of the premium esports setup stores for ACC. Whether it's to create a safe setup or you're looking for a faster alternative for your favorite car, one of the guys over there does have a pack for you. And with a plethora of esports stars on their roster, you can be sure that the setup you choose has many hours behind it. And of course, with 1.9 coming in, all the setups are null and void. So, you know, what better time to treat yourself than Go Setups pack. And we do have, Ted Edwards, every time I say this to someone new, a Jaguar pack. We need more Jaguars on the field.
Need more Jaguars on the field. Yes, we do. Yeah, they also Go Setups also in their Discord put out a base for some of the cars. I tried it out and it's actually pretty good. Tried it out with the new Porsche, and yeah, it was very nice of them to do a little free throw out there, so people can get to grips with the new track and the new cars, which was, I think, a very nice thing. You don't really see that from that sort of thing.
Yeah, certainly so. And a few other setup stores, you know, I'm not naming names here, but they have done in the past a few little kind of taster setups. So, you know, it's good to see. If you're a bit skeptical on buying, or you know, you don't want to part with your hard-earned pennies, of course, as Ted says, do head over to their Discord, because freebies on the show, and I'm curious now to try the Porsche. So might be doing that tomorrow in my spare time when I get back from work. But more onto the action tonight. This man here, Harry Phillips, is absolutely pedaling away with the race. 11 seconds to the good on Klaus Nyring in P2. Polyakov just 2.3 seconds to the good behind him. And then Martin Lawrence in P4, and a bit of a comeback drive. He's got certainly a very big gap to close up to, as you see Lawrence there crossing the sector line now. 14 seconds to the good. Lichen 1.5 behind him. So still a few cars close. Harry Phillips, of course, has to negate a few bits of traffic. Crombeen there staying way out of the way. Very heads-up driving from him. And look to your top right. Rain still decreasing in the next 10 to 30 minutes. I'm wondering if a few of these guys are, you know, hanging it out, Ted, for a tyre choice. Although I don't think it's going to dry up enough for dries, but it's certainly going to give you a better window into what the wets will do come the end of the race.
Yeah, it could be. They could be looking at it, but I don't think it will. It still looks too wet on that track there. That dry line looks nice and dry-ish, but yeah, slicks will be the worst choice for them. You see, Kevin. I thought that was Tim then. I was like, the front end's not broken. It's not. It's Kevin and Martinez, the 91, going through cheater 2. That's how you should do it. Nice and easy, but just looking across at the stewards giving us a little slip, and that 13-10-10 involving the 18 and the 21. 5 seconds for car 18 causes avoidable damage with the 21. Additional warning for severity. I think that was at the top of the mountain. when the 18 went sideways and the other car hit them. Um, the car that was sideways got that penalty, unfortunately. We saw that live. And we got one for lap 19, turn 12, involving the 171. That's a racing incident. I'm not sure what happened there, but
There's
yeah.
a few reports tonight with a car number missing. It just seems to be one car having an incident on its own. So not sure what's happening there, whether they're fighting the curb or some track scenery, who knows. But a big wrestle there from Polyakov in the 36 through sunset. Just coming up to the back now. I believe this is Klaus Nyring we're seeing in shot just ahead. And see how much moisture is still in those curbs, Ted, as you said. I don't think dries are going to be optimal here, but certainly maybe a new set of wets might be a smart call if you are hemorrhaging some pace.
Yeah, it's just always one of them. It's trying to keep that car going. I really want to know what these wet tires are like how are they, like, what we 40 minutes in, and it's, you know, they've been on the same set of tires. I've been on the dries in the 25-minute race, and they went off super quick. And that was in the GT3 car in the new Porsche, but yeah, I've heard from a lot of people tires do go off, so I just really want to know how GT4 cars handle these tires.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know kind of what the grain and the blisters doing at the moment, as Polyakov really working the wheel, trying to catch every kind of tenth of a second that he can to the back of Klaus Nyring just ahead in the blue Maserati. And yeah, certainly definitely gaining that last lap by 0.866 to the good now. Polyakov on a real charge, setting his best lap of the race there with a 155.115, and best lap over all of the race goes to him as well. So, of course, if the qualifying rules were observed, Polyakov could have been the thorn in Harry Phillips' side today.
Yeah, it could have been, but you never know. What's the gap, like 15 seconds now? So, you know, 14 minutes left, you get a second a lap. If you're lucky, then might be able to go for a top spot there, but still got to get past Nyring, which is 8 tenths of the road. But then 5-second penalty. That's the problem when you get a penalty. You know, you want to stay out of the incidents, and a little tap or whatever, it just give you that few seconds that you just don't need. And I've had it before. I've had penalties and could have got a top 10 or whatever, and got a 5-second. And it's just like, well, that goes out the window now. It's just trying to stay away from the people behind me, but these things happen in racing.
Yeah, I think Polyakov right now, probably the smart move is to not maybe fight Danish driver Klaus Nyring, to you know, slow them both up essentially, and just kind of hang pace behind him. Of course, like you say, with the 5-second penalty, he's going to be way clear of Martin Lawrence behind. Of course, 15 seconds to the good at the moment, and if he starts fighting with Nyring, of course, that 15 seconds could soon disappear very quickly, especially if the drivers make contact, or, you know, these accidental drifts happen, and you know, loop it round. It's certainly on the cards tonight. Polyakov missing the apex there through Cheetah, running very wide, and as we say, big armful of opposite lock for Polyakov, very well held. In a few drivers not so lucky through that corner at the moment. And yeah, Polyakov now, let's have a race replay of the drift of the day. Here we go, out of Cheetah, big armful of opposite lock on the exit, and just about managed to wrestle it under control. You see the tires there flashing on the HUD red when, of course, they lock up and lose traction. So lots of blinking, lots of green to red, and that was a very scary moment indeed, Ted.
Yeah, I had to go in these cars for the pre-quali, had a little bit of practice, a little bit of testing, and I said nope. I was just locking left, right, and centre. I got too much of a heavy foot on the accelerator and on the bit on the brake, just to, you know, drive this car with no assist, and very difficult. So I do give big props to these guys that are driving, because it is not easy to drive.
Yeah, I did the same. I did a bit of pre-qualifying just to kind of get a feel on what these cars were like. So obviously from a commentary point of view, you know roughly what the drivers are going through at the moment, and that was, of course, what 1.8 patch. Of course, we are on now 1.9, so might be worth me getting some seat time for the next round just to see what they are facing. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't like to be even on 1.8 standards out in these cars. And Polyakov now sizes up the move up to the top of the hill. Can he get it drawn up? Just about. bangs doors. Nyring round the outside. Big slide from Nyring. Position taken from Polyakov, although looks like he backed out of it on the exit, Ted, so stewards might be a little bit more lenient on the penalty, although the 5 second to his name already. Stewards already going to be watching down on Polyakov in the 36.
Yeah, I'm not sure stewards will... there goes the drift.
Another tandem drift of the day. That's 2 of them now.
I don't think stewards will look nicely on that, even though he slowed down a bit. That's mainly all goes straight into the pit lane. Fair enough. Don't want to fight. Probably going for the undercut on Nyring. See, we know that he is faster than Nyring as well. But yeah, I think stewards will just still look at that as any other penalty. You know, it was pretty nice send until the hit, and I'll do this with Jesse Lee. John, I rate the sends out of 10, and I give that a 2.
That's a 2 out of 10 for a send. Maybe a little bit higher on the TED scale without the contact, but yes. Certainly it was a send, but just not a well-rated send. Maybe we should do sends of the day, and we'll do a drift of the day as well, and see who comes out on top. But Nyring now free of Polyakov ahead, so he's free to stretch the legs towards Harry Phillips if he can, although they'll probably pull a gap from Martin Lawrence behind. Polyakov with the 5 second penalty, of course, slips down provisionally on the order, although drivers ahead of him still yet to make their pit stop. Again, if you are new to hear us, to us here, sorry, at RCI TV, and you're wondering what the green and the orange bits mean on the scoreboard, green, of course, is a driver that has completed their mandatory pit stop, as we see Dylan Smith going a little bit slow out the hairpin. What happened here? Andy Boardman nowhere near him, no one ahead of him, a little bit of a wiggle, jumped on the gas, and a big slide, although well held. I think a big jab of the brakes there to keep that one in line and out of the Armco. Andy Boardman goes through, and Smith continues on his way. But back to the point I was making, the green box is to indicate a driver has completed their mandatory stop. So to complete the mandatory stop, you have to stop in the pit window that you see at the top of your screen. 8.5 minutes left to go. You have to add 1 litre of fuel minimum, and then anything else is up to you. So as long as you do that, that is all good. And then, of course, with the orange number 1, should we say, in the box, that is a number where you do have to take a mandatory stop. So Polyakov here, of course, cleared his. Everyone around him still yet to clear theirs, so he should gains on that one. Matthias Thornberg, though, just behind, still yet to make a stop, so I don't think he'll be a threat to Polyakov. And Polyakov now has some lovely clear air, Ted, to probably get some even more fast laps going.
Yeah, we know he's pretty... Oh, Martin Lawrence in the pit from 3rd place as well. Yeah, we know he's pretty quick, and he's just getting held up by Nyring, so that was a very good call from him just to, you know, dip into the pit lane. You know, there's no point sticking behind someone if you know you're... Even if you're a 10th faster a lap, you're still getting held up by, like, half a second or so. It's not great, and, you know, you could be catching up to the 1st place, so... Just strategy at the end of the day, and a very good one from him. And just looking at some of the pits, and they're all around 30 to 40 second mark. They're all taking the 1 litre. They're not taking tyres. As earlier we saw, it was Andy Boardman, I think, took tyres earlier on. Yeah, he did. He was a 1 minute pit stop. Tim Island and Cormac Quinn at the 1 minute as well, but they probably had damage. And when you got damage, you might as well take tyres. So. But yeah, it's strategy is not that different. People taking full fuel. Some people probably taking half fuel. The number 11 in AM class, Verduppen, he did a 49.7 second pit stop. So I'm gonna guess that's fuel, because even if you miss your pit box and it has to readjust you, that's not. That seems too long for that anyway. That's about another 5 seconds onto your pit. So. Yeah, it's
probably agree there, Ted. Of course, Van Zoofen with the slightly longer stop. Looks like he might split the fuel down the middle. Of course, the advantage to doing that one. Of course, the car is a little bit lighter in both the beginning and the end. You spend a little bit more time in pit lane, although the added fuel, the less weight, should say, of not carrying the extra fuel. Of course, a little bit easier on the Pirelli tyres, so might be a little bit kinder to tyre wear come at the end of the race. Klaus Nyring still with good pace, though, at 155.732, his best being a 155.545. So Delta looking very healthy indeed. Just under 10 minutes to go, 7 minutes 20 on the clock. Battles have kind of died down a little bit. We've still got a few drivers yet to make pit stops, so keep your eye on the scoreboard for those shuffling about. And Dominicus, who started from the pit lane, need we add, so all the way down in 26th, 27th, somewhere around there, now finds himself up into P13, looking at the back of Matthew Kingston-Lee, who is yet to take his pit stop. So Matthew Kingston-Lee, of course, will promote himself, Dominicus up a position as well as soon as he comes down the lane. So Dominicus has really got to do is just kind of keep file and just follow Matthew Kingston-Lee. Of course, Dan Van Zoofen just ahead. No effect on their championship if they swap places. Of course, a pro and an am do score differently in RCI races, so nothing really to be had from taking the fight there. Big armful of opposite lock through Cheetah, very well held, and Matthew Kingston-Lee peels off into the pit lane. So Piotr Dominicus free to go now in the number 6 car, and he's now got some nice clear air ahead of him, so good to fill in some lap times on that one. Just under 5 minutes to go on the pit window, 6 minutes just over on the race clock. And Harry Phillips, this man here, absolute dominant performance now, comes in to pit lane. Be very careful on the entry, slows it up nice and early, way before the line even came up. Of course, with a 16.6 second gap to Nyring. The last thing he wants, Ted, is a drive-through, or even worse, a stop-go 30.
Yeah, it's it really ruined your race. You can ask Tom Bryant on that one. He gets them quite often in the races, bless him. He never has a good race, and if he does, then it's very rare. But he normally comes in a bit too quick and gets the stuff and goes. I've had a few myself. It's very, very easy to forget where the pit entry line is, and yeah, you end up going a bit too fast.
I might have ruined a race me and Kevin Boss had on Sunday with.
Oh no!
Don't tell anyone. I might have been the one that got it, looking very confident inside the top 10 just about, and then yeah, got a bit too confident on the last pit stop down the lane and overshot the marker. Stop go 30 for me, and race chances ruined. Did manage to claw back 2 positions, drove like a madman for 24 minutes, making up 2 seconds a lap on the guy ahead. So yeah, definitely had a good pace there. So all about looking after your tyres in 1.9. Here's a little insight from me in the comms box if you are still here. Nika Kumpu down the lane, out again. He goes into P4, I believe, or 5, sorry, on the board. Martin Lawrence still ahead of them on the 171. And of course, Polyakov here has managed to jump them. And if you're curious on Polyakov and Klaus Nyring, the move we saw at the top of the hill earlier on, stewards have made a decision on that one. Lap 25, turn 12. Involving the 23 and the 36. A warning for car 36. Avoidable contact, but position is returned. So he was thinking very favourably on that one. And you said earlier, Ted, of course, you had a little insight to the stewards and the way they operate. And positions returned are quite favourable in incident.
Yeah, depending on how bad the incident is, obviously that comes into effect as well. But yeah, we have such a good stewarding team here. All our stewards, we have different stewards on different days. Yeah, they are like the best thing we have here at RCI. Apart from Stewie, the guy who made the website all on his own. What a splendid guy he is, and obviously helping us with the broadcast today. Couldn't do it without him.
Yeah, certainly. Everybody needs a Stewie, I would say, in their company to things you see on the fabulous RCI website. From the pictures he brings you on our streams. Kudos to him and the absolute mad stints he pulls, especially in the RCI 6-hour series. It's very well commendable, and you can't thank RCI staff members enough. Everybody here completely volunteering, no monetary exchange involved in anything, and we do this for the love of the hobby that is, of course, sim racing, and the enjoyment we get from bringing it to your screens and around the globe, and of course hosting easily accessible events, from every event we run in the weekday at a reasonable time for Europeans, right up to Night Owl, of course. Plug here. Starts this Saturday. Now, as Jesse Lee would say.
It's slipping out. Sorry.
Jesse Lee is ingrained in me with shouting Night Owl in my ears repeatedly. So yeah, it's the only way I hear that word now. But of course, Night Owl begins this Saturday. So if you are from a different time zone to the the common ones we see in Europe, and you want a piece of the action, get yourself over to the website and signed up there. And Polyakov now looks to the front. Here we go. Look at this. We got Klaus Nyring at the back of this train. This could get interesting. Polyakov now on the back foot. Look at the big drift out of Clubhouse from Polyakov. He is really on the limit. He wants a piece of Klaus Naring. He wants that second step of the podium, and he wants a good championship point haul to his first event, I think, Ted.
Yeah, just looking at the pit stops for them, and Naring had a 32.4 pit stop, whereas Polyakov had a 36.9. And Stewie just reminded me of the 5-second penalty. I totally forgot about that, John. Like, they're driving so nicely. I totally forgot about that big red box that says +5S next to his name. But yeah, there you go. That shut me up then, didn't it? Thanks,
the
Stewie.
one we were looking at for the past 50 minutes or so. Big drift there from Naring as he starts lapping cars. I think that's possibly who we run on board with, Daniel Martinez. So that'll be Christopher Black behind in the 917, and Naring trying to find an inch of space now, but gotta be careful. Daniel Martinez doesn't let his rival through. Naring to the outside, of course, trying to put a lap on the 91, and a big drift for the 91 is going to allow Black through, I feel, although Polyakov also on the back of this train wants to get through. We're probably on to what would be one of the final laps now. It's going to be very close for the 26 at the head of the field. I imagine Harry Phillips is going to lift off a little bit with a 17.7 second lead. So, of course, Polyakov, I think this is the last lap to take a chunk out of Naring. He's now dispatched of Martinez into turn one. Be very careful on the switchback. Contact isn't made. Christopher Black and Martinez fighting their own race behind, and Polyakov wants to get ahead. Christopher Black around the outside in barbecue, gains a position on the 91. Daniel Martinez, great driving there from both of them, but Polyakov at the front of this field now. He's going to have his eyes firmly set on the back of Klaus Naring. 0.885 to the good. Naring's just got to claw on for one more lap. There's about 7 to 8 more corners to go for these guys, and Polyakov is working the wheels something rotten. He's using every inch of the track that he can. Be careful on these curbs, Polyakov. There's still a lot of moisture in them, and fantastic shots as we ride on board. We've got another car just ahead of this train, possibly going to be the kind of spanner in the works for Naring. Naring's going to have to dispatch of this one very quickly. Furious blue flags being waved up the top of the hill, very wide. I think that's our very own Kevin Boss. It is the number 31 of Kevin Boss on the outside. Polyakov goes through, but I think Naring might have just done enough, Ted, here.
Yeah, I was just looking at something else that has just happened. The 104 of Chris Carr has had a crash with another, I think the number 18, and it's got massive front end damage. And obviously, we just seen Kevin Boss. He was in 4th place for AM. There is quite a big gap between them. 1 lap left. I say that though, I think Kevin Boss is coming across the start-finish line now, so that's been thrown out the window, unfortunately. But yeah, I just saw that on the map there. Yeah, it was a yellow flag, but Harry Phillips taking 1st place again, Chris Naring 2nd, and Polyak 3rd. What a good race that was.
Very good race indeed, and it's not over yet. Lichton still wanting a piece of Nico Kumpu. 2 corners to go. A little bit of a friendly bump from behind, and to the outside he goes. Kumpu on the defensive to the inside. I think he's done just about enough if they can get a clean run both from the last corner, and they can. I don't think Lichton's got enough in it to pass Kumpu before the line as they go through there. That's 5th and 6th settled on that one, and man here, just want to congratulate Dan Van Zoofen on a fantastic drive. Of course, you put him in the AM class in finger quotations once again, but he's managed to stick it to a lot of the pro drivers, finishing inside the top 10. P8 overall, and takes an AM win, and a nice little drift there for maybe for the race, although not too much angle coming through the exit. Very played it safe. Towards the line he goes. Dan Van Zoofen takes your AM honours in the number 11. Piotr Dominicus in the number 6 takes P9. And Martin Schaefer, I don't know if you've worked out his team name yet, but the Seaton Hybrid Investment Trust team, the number 13 coming across the line. Big wiggle behind there from Aquadon. And I think that's Tim Ireland or Martinez there letting another car through. Matthias Aquadon in 11th. Ryan Ware just about fends off Andy Boardman for P12. Andy Boardman in P13 with those fresher tyres. I'd be curious to speak to him to see how he felt his race went. Daniel Smith behind takes 2nd place in AM, and Chris Carr, I believe, just behind there in the 104, taking the bottom step of the AM podium. Matthew Kingston Lee in P16. Tom Shipston for Ground Zero Racing comes through for P17 overall. And I think other than Crombeen and a few others, that is your race done. as we see a few messages in the chat there. Good luck, have fun, happy sliding, good luck, have fun. And happy sliding certainly was the aim of the race today. Another dominant performance from Harry Phillips in the Wild Things Racing Team, number 26. Unfortunately, no Dom Healy to lock out the front row of that result. Klaus Naring clawed on for a second. Polyakov taking the bottom step of your podium, with Dan Van Zoofen in P8 taking AM honours from Smith and Carr down in P14 and 15. But again, Blacksmith Engineering with an excellent showing of talent. And my Ted, what a race that was. It's a very tricky combo, but I think the drivers that faced it out did very well indeed to keep it on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I would not have liked to race that in that car on this wet track, but they did such a good job. A lot of sliding, a lot of spins, a few yellow flags, but nothing too serious. Stewards handled all the the important stuff as usual very well, and I don't know if you saw, Harry Phillips took the fastest lap. Yeah, it was yeah, such a good day, and that rain, as you can see, that rain was coming back, so they weren't out of the water. Just slicks were not an option today, but yeah, very good race from all of the drivers.
Yeah, definitely so. And Harry Phillips, like you said, with the fastest lap, snuck that in there at the end. Unfortunately, Healy, I think, did turn up. Hardware did die, so he did lodge a result on the board there. Daly, of course, with a DNF on that one, along with Merchant. Quinn Crombine was the last one to see it out, and Manso, of course, down there in P28 as well. But fantastic racing from everybody here today. And of course, if you want to take part in any events that we have here at RCI, you can, of course, head on over to our website, racerci.com, where you will find a full calendar breakdown and all sign up details that you need. Quick highlight, of course, from this week. Friday starts a new championship with the Sprint Challenge Season 11 with GT3s. We then got Saturday, now beginning with Season 13 as well, giving those, of course, on a different time zone a chance to join RCI events. And of course, Wednesday has a sign up for the team championship in quotation marks. We do, of course, allow you guys to take it on solo if you fancy 80 minutes of racing on that one in GT3 machinery. And finally, Thursday sign-ups are also now open with GT4s taking the center stage, with that season beginning on May 11th. You can, of course, sign up and pre-qualify anytime for these events at racerci.com, including the Maserati Cup. So if you fancy a stab at it next week, do feel free to do so. And of course, a quick message from all of our partners from AK Esports, driver61.com, Fanatec, digitalmotorsports.com, and Go Setups. Of course, helping us here at RCI massively various ways. And of course, none of it would be possible without everybody at home, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube. We are, of course, trying to grow the Twitch channel slightly this year. So head on over there, drop us a follow, and all that good stuff just to help the algorithms for us would be greatly appreciated, being our main home with the like, subscribe, and the bell icon. So smash those to your heart's content. And in the YouTube description, you can, of course, find all of our social media links to anything at RCI, including Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can find out about all the exciting stuff that goes on behind the scenes here at RCI, such as events coming up, any escapades our esports teams go into, as well as any various news articles feel are relevant to the community. But it's been a great evening of racing. Kyalami looking very different now in the cinematic shots as to when it did just about 2 hours ago. Of course, with a soaking wet track, drivers doing very well indeed to claw on. But for now, this will, of course, be the end of our broadcast on RCI TV. I believe we are streaming the Friday Championship this week, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. And hopefully we'll see you on another broadcast at RCI TV. So from myself, John Dalton, from Ted Edwards next to me for a rare appearance, and from Stewie behind the cameras, and of course all the live stewards in the box, we bid you farewell. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. We hope to catch you another time here at RCI TV.